At Audrey's apartment in Hong Kong, we see how the woman is interviewing both Joe and Sandra about what has happened at their nuclear plant and what it might mean. She does this again after her previous tape was destroyed by her boss. The couple answer every question openly, warning everyone who might receive this message that it's not just several coastal areas that are in danger, but every living soul on Earth. At the military headquarters, the air carrier arrives and the baby kaiju's body is immediately transported inside the base as Newton stays with it at all times. Many people look in awe or fascination at the thing, never having seen one so small and from so close. It's brought to the laboratory where Gottlieb was waiting with the other scientists. He's baffled to see what Newton has brought and also stares in awe. Newton acts very obsessively, claiming they need to use his prototype on the creature as soon as possible. They know the portal is sending out some sort of code or signal and they don't know what it means, but they might when they use his invention. Gottlieb understands but remains very skeptical. That prototype has never been used. How can they know it will work? What if they accidentally destroy the only good worthy specimen they will ever have? Newton knows, but he must take the risk. Too much is at stake right now. Gottlieb, annoyed, is forced to comply and orders the other scientists to help. Nick, however, stays back and watches in silence. He soon mentions to Newton that he will help, but not today. He feels he must visit Audrey after experiencing such a life or death event. Newton is frustrated since Nick is one of his best colleagues, but eventually lets him go. The other scientists all take out Newton's prototype and prepare for the dangerous experiments. Near Tokyo, the helicopter lands right next to Serizawa's house. Him and Vivienne get out with some soldiers as they quickly head inside where the professor starts to look. Vivienne also takes a look around and notices the countless of pictures, books and dossiers the man has collected over the years, all revolving around the origin of the kaijus in one way or another. It's almost obsessive to look at, which Vivienne even says out loud. Serizawa manages a chuckle, claiming every person has a purpose, whether they accept it or not. He has accepted his a long time ago and fully embraced it without any shame or remorse. He finally finds the books he was looking for. Two relatively small novel-like books that look like ancient relics from a time long ago. He has a moment for himself as he thinks of his father again. He smiles and makes a promise in Japanese to not disappoint him. He fetches the books and heads out with Vivienne and the others. As they are in a helicopter en route to Hong Kong, Vivienne does ask if he has any idea what the phenomenon of the portal might mean. This pulse, is it indeed a signal? In a state of immense pressure, Serizawa searches through the books. It's not entirely a signal, it's a call. They're trying to awaken something. In Hong Kong, Nick is walking through the streets as we see how everyone is just living their life, not at all aware of the immense danger that could come at any moment. He heads to his apartment in an attempt to surprise Audrey with some flowers, only to see his wife with Joe and Sandra. Both are startled as Audrey didn't expect him to be back, while Nick simply wonders who these people are. Joe soon asks Nick about the mission he has been on. Their son Ford was also there. Is he alive? Did anything happen? Nick, confused, answers, assuring the parents that their son is indeed alive, although the mission itself took heavy toll. He doesn't want to give away any details since it was a secret mission officially, but Audrey claims there have been rumors in the media. She tells her husband about the fact that the media wants to silence people like Joe and Sandra. They believe something far worse is happening, that the kaijus might be able to attack cities from underneath the ground. That's what's been happening to numerous places. Nick finds it all very overwhelming. Why hasn't there been any news? Why silence them? It's a whole moment where the four are trying to make everything clear for each other. Joe and Sandra get more concerned by the minute. They need to alert the people. There could be countless of casualties if they don't try to warn them. Nick eventually agrees and claims they need to go to Admiral Stacker and tell them everything they just told him. The couple agrees, but Audrey claims that would take too long. Besides, what chances do they have that the military will believe them? They have as much reason to avoid panic as the media does. Nick understands but asks Audrey to not lose her faith in humanity entirely. Audrey does decide to stay at the apartment while Nick takes Joe and Sandra to the headquarters. On the air carrier of Admiral Stans, they are still monitoring the signals from the portal when suddenly the signal itself changes. Stans questions what this might mean, as some of his own crew claim the signal has now changed from spreading all over the world to a single direction. Stans is confused. What direction? Where is the signal going? And after some calculations, it's clear. It's headed for Antarctica. Stans immediately contacts Stacker and informs them about the same findings. At the control room of the headquarters, Stacker and Ops receive every bit of information. They had also noticed how the signal is changing from the portal. All of them clueless about what it means, but Ops is sure that it's trying to contact something. What else could it be? Stacker wants to believe him, but what on earth could be at Antarctica? He immediately wants to know the location of Serizawa. Those books of his better be of good use. In the laboratory, the scientists have carefully attached the baby kaiju's head to Newton's prototype. It's meant to connect the mind of the monster to a human via the drift technology. Only then can they learn the secrets that these monsters hold. Newton volunteers to use himself, which Gottlieb once again calls madness. Newton makes it very clear, however, that the majority of his whole life he has been trying to understand these creatures, and he has only known failure after failure. He doesn't care if it drives him mad, he must do this. Even though Gottlieb and Newton are very clearly working on each other's nerves, it does show how Gottlieb doesn't want his colleague to hurt himself. It's a very mysterious moment, as everyone watches how Newton connects himself to the machine via the other side. Now both the kaiju and scientist are connected. Gottlieb wishes the man good luck, and please don't die. Newton manages a chuckle. He's a man of science. It's an occupational hazard. Silence follows, and then Gottlieb presses the button to activate the machine. Bright flashes are shown as Newton gasps loudly. He sees a whole world opening up before his eyes as he's taking to another. We see everything that he's seeing. He's underwater. He's in deep space. We see a massive planet bigger than any planet ever discovered. It's a destroyed world corrupted by forces of nature that mankind can't even begin to comprehend. He delves deep below the surface and sees a massive underground fortress of some sorts. Inside the fortress are hundreds of kaijus. Hundreds of them. All of them chained up like pets by their masters. Their masters appear as shadows and silhouettes. Newton sees it all. He sees everything. Until it becomes too much for him, and he starts to scream. He gets snapped back to reality as he only feels an immense pain now. Gottlieb and the others immediately disconnect him from the machine right before the prototype itself burns down due to too much energy of some sort. The baby kaiju's head completely melts away, and all the power in the room instantly falls out. We end with Gottlieb trying to wake Newton up, but he's completely unconscious, with severe burn marks on his head. In the control room of the headquarters, Ops and Stacker also experience a slight power drop, as they reckon it comes from the laboratory. Several men are immediately sent down there to find out what happens. That's when they get a call from Vivienne from the helicopter. The signal is somewhat distorted, but they can hear a very panicking Vivienne urging them to send bombers to Antarctica. It's Antarctica! They must follow their precise coordinates. Stacker and Ops are confused and order more information. But in the helicopter itself, over the sea, we see how Vivienne claims there's no time for explanation. Serizawa has figured out what the portal's call means, what it's trying to do. They must send bombers towards Antarctica at their military research site there, now! All the while we see how Serizawa looks at a page in his book with horrified eyes. Whatever he has discovered, it's immensely ominous. Outside the base, Nick, Joe and Sandra near the headquarters as they arrive at the front gates. Nick wants to speak to Stacker but is refused entry since Sandra and Joe don't have clearance to enter the base. The parents try to convince the guards that they are Captain Ford's parents. They need to speak to the Admiral, it's a matter of life or death. A whole argument breaks out as the guards keep on refusing them entry. Inside the headquarters, We get a whole scene where Stacker orders several bombing drones to go to their military base at Antarctica. He also issues an evacuation for all the people there. They need to leave that place at once, now! The drones are dispatched as the entire headquarters of Hong Kong is on high alert. Herc enters the room as well, as he also suggests sending out a Jaeger. It could help. Stacker believes there won't be enough time for that and they can't afford to lose any. For now, drones must do the trick. And those people at Antarctica need to evacuate ASAP. Antarctica. We see a large military base on the surface as alarms start to go off. In the control room, the soldiers have just received the order from Stacker to evacuate as soon as possible. The whole facility is going on lockdown. As chaos starts to slowly grow, some soldiers head to the deepest level of the facility underground, where another laboratory is found. We see several scientists as they apparently are investigating something deep in the ice. As the soldiers urge them to pack all necessary things, the head scientist claims they can't just leave. They have found something hidden in the ice. They're so close. They can't just abandon all their progress now. The soldiers pay no attention and order everyone to gather their research. They're leaving in exactly 20 minutes. Several scientists want to leave, but their leader remains stubborn. He keeps on looking at the massive ice wall that is right next to their laboratory. Something is hidden inside of it. Something they discovered. On the air carrier, Stans and Ford are informed that the signal for the portal towards the South Pole is weakening. The calling is slowly fading. At the front gate of the headquarters in Hong Kong, Nick is still arguing with the guards, but things get out of hand when they threaten to arrest them if they keep trying to enter without permission. Sandra eventually convinces Joe and Nick to let it be. Nick must do the talking for them. Eventually, Nick is allowed in as he promises the couple they will have their chance. Defeated, Joe and Sandra head back to Audrey's apartment. Serizawa and Vivienne land with their helicopter at the headquarters in Hong Kong as they see a massive swarm of drones flying over the ocean towards the South Pole. The two professors rush towards the control room where they meet Stacker, Herc, and Ops. There is not a minute to lose. Serizawa and Vivienne are panicking. Have those people at Antarctica left yet? They won't survive once the call for the portal stops. Stacker orders the two scientists to explain what on earth is going on. Serizawa shows them his books. It contains all the ancient mythology about the kaijus. He grew up with it. For years he believed it were only stories, but so far everything that has happened matches precisely with the legends. And if that's true, then the entire area around the military base at the South Pole needs to be destroyed. Right now. In the streets of Hong Kong, Joe and Sandra walk through the masses as they ponder on what they can do to help when all their attempts appear to be failing. That's when they pass a bar where a news broadcast is playing. The couple stops as they hear how apparently an anonymous source has posted a video on the internet of two people who survived a recent earthquake in Japan. Joe and Sandra are shocked to see how their interview with Audrey from earlier starts to play on live TV for the whole world to see. We get a whole scene of all the people in the streets, in their homes, in shopping malls, wherever, who get to see the interview of Joe and Sandra. The news of a potential immense danger that is yet to come. A potential global destructive danger that is lurking underneath the surface. Everything is said right before the interview is blocked by the authorities and the broadcasting stops. People in the streets already start to panic while Joe and Sandra just stare in silence and shock. In the apartment, we see how Audrey has indeed posted the video on the internet and made sure everyone would see it. She couldn't stop herself. And we see how she feels no regret. The public had to know. Outside we can hear how people start to yell and shout. Panic and chaos are growing more and more. There is no going back now. In the laboratory of Hong Kong, Newton finally wakes up as he is still delirious from the experiment. Gottlieb urges him to talk. What did he see? What did he discover? Newton tries to speak, but he's completely stuttering. The kaijus, they are not the biggest threat. In the control room, everyone just got told the same thing. Herc is horrified. What is the real threat then? Serizawa almost has tears in his eyes. It's here on Earth. It was right here on Earth, all this time. And they didn't know. In Antarctica, several helicopters are already leaving. The soldiers are packing everything in. The majority of the scientists also want to leave, but the head scientist remains stubborn. He refuses to give up all its work. They don't understand. Something is right here, hidden in the ice. They can't leave. At the air carrier, everyone is still monitoring the signal from the portal. It's very weak, only pulsating every 10 seconds. Like a heartbeat dying out. Until it finally stops. Stens gasps. The signal. It's over. In Hong Kong, Ops notices the same thing. The signal has stopped. Serizawa and Vivienne now freeze on the spot. It's beginning. At Antarctica, while evacuation is going on, suddenly a very deep quake is felt. The whole base starts to tremble slightly, as if a deep earthquake is happening below them. Now everyone starts to panic. The soldiers yell at everyone on the top to hurry inside the last helicopters now! The scientists all leave the laboratory as they also feel it. The head scientist stares at the large wall of ice as cracks start to appear. The ice is shattering. More and more, the whole base starts to crumble down, slow at first but more intense with each minute. The earthquake gets worse, until several whole compartments of the underground base start to collapse. The lead scientist now also feels the immense danger and wants to leave as well, but that's when the whole floor suddenly gives in, and all the people inside the laboratory fall into a massive dark cavern below. The cavern is deep, and that's when a distant growl can be heard. Everyone on the surface and inside the base can hear it. They freeze in fear. Several seconds later, a massive eruption happens that almost turns the whole base into a volcano-like phenomenon. Several helicopters fall from the sky as they are hit by exploding debris. People are launched into the air. The entire underground of the base is destroyed. And another growl is heard, this one louder and even more frightening. The several people on the surface that are still alive look behind them to the now massive cavern where first the base was. And then they see it. A massive spiked tail appears. A long neck rises out of the ground, followed by another one, and another one. 3 heads. A massive dragon-like kaiju appears out of the ground, but far bigger than any other kaiju that has ever been seen before. It stretches out its wings. It stretches out its wings high up in the air as it unleashes the loudest and most terrifying roar the world has ever heard. It stretches out so far over the ocean that everyone can hear it, even all the way to Hong Kong along the coast. The people outside the military base can hear it. The roar. Everyone in the control room is dead silent. Only Serizawa slightly whispers something as he holds the book close to him. Now, the Outworld King has risen again. The False King, Ghidorah.